Billionaire husband caught in the act at a fancy restaurant with mistress pregnant wife in tears. High heels clacked against polished marble floors as whispers of scandal filled the air. In an exclusive Italian restaurant nestled in the heart of Manhattan, socialites and tycoons dined beneath glittering chandeliers, unaware that this evening would unravel a secret capable of destroying lives. Theodore Caldwell, a self-made billionaire with legendary charm, had chosen this opulent setting for an intimate rendezvous, never suspecting his pregnant wife Clarissa would arrive unannounced. What she witnessed was a betrayal so brazen it brought her to tears. In a single moment caught in the glow of flickering candlelight, Clarissa's entire world began to crumble, casting a shadow far darker than any scandalous rumor. Clarissa Caldwell had once envisioned her marriage to Theo Caldwell as the ultimate modern fairy tale. She was a rising star on the charity circuit, admired for her elegance and refined social skills. He was a financial prodigy turned real estate mogul, building a global empire from scratch. Their wedding, splashed across the society pages, had been the talk of the season, a lavish ceremony in the Hamptons, replete with white roses, a custom Valentino gown, and a guest list that included politicians, film stars, and even a few European royals. Under the summer sun, they exchanged vows, proclaiming that love pure and true would guide them through anything. But as time passed, fairy tales often revealed their razor-sharp edges. Theo was a man whose ambition soared like a rocket. Charisma oozed from his every pore, attracting new deals, forging powerful alliances, and, regrettably, drawing the attention of many women. Clarissa, initially charmed by his larger-than-life personality, soon found herself relegated to a lonely existence behind golden gates. Their Manhattan penthouse gleamed with the spoils of success, Italian marble floors, one-of-a-kind artwork, and panoramic views of Central Park, but there was often something missing: Theo himself. Late-night meetings, overseas business trips, and mysterious dinners with potential investors became routine. Clarissa tried to keep herself occupied. She poured her energy into philanthropic endeavors, hoping to nurture a sense of fulfillment. She organized fundraisers for pediatric hospitals, chaired galas to fund literacy programs, and even took up watercolor painting to fill the yawning emptiness of the Caldwell penthouse. Yet beneath her polished smile, an insidious loneliness grew. Over time, she discovered subtle changes in Theo, the way his gaze would stray when she entered a room, how he'd pause before acknowledging her presence, or the faint trace of unfamiliar perfume on his tailored suits. It was during a charity function that Clarissa first heard the name Celine Moreau. A friend had murmured the name in hushed tones, describing Celine as a stunning and mysterious woman who had recently appeared at various high society gatherings. Allegedly, she was the daughter of a French banker, but whispers swirled that her family's fortune was half fabricated. Clarissa shrugged off the rumor at the time. People gossiped endlessly in her circle, and she was used to hearing stories about all sorts of social climbers. However, that name lingered, carving an uncomfortable niche in her mind. Soon after, Clarissa discovered she was pregnant. The news should have brightened every corner of her life. She had always dreamed of having a family, and, for a moment, hope fluttered within her. Perhaps a baby would inspire Theo to slow down, to remember what truly mattered. Maybe he would spend more time at home, reading stories to their child or sharing quiet family dinners. She envisioned a future where the gilded cage opened, allowing her a taste of genuine love and companionship. However, Theo's reaction was strangely subdued. He congratulated her, of course hugged her gently, told her how happy he was, and promised to be the best father. But Clarissa sensed a distance in his gaze, a subtle reservation that contradicted the warm words escaping his lips. Tired from the dinner parties, and hotel lounge deals that encompassed his busy schedule, he continued to slip away, physically present, but emotionally remote. And Clarissa, heart swelling with both hope and creeping fear, tried to keep the negative thoughts at bay. The day she finally spotted Celine Moreau in the lobby of Theo's office building, everything changed. Celine was impossible to miss. Tall, raven-haired, impeccably dressed in a red pencil skirt and matching blouse. She walked with the confidence of someone who knew she was being watched and relished the attention. Clarissa's heart hammered against her ribs as she put two and two together. It wasn't just an investor or a business associate that had begun occupying more and more space in Theo's world. It was the beguiling woman about whom society had started to whisper. Little did Clarissa know that this was only the beginning of a slow, heartbreaking unmasking of the husband she thought she knew. Clarissa tried to maintain composure as she stood in the lobby, her gaze locked onto Celine Moreau's retreating form. The entire exchange took barely a minute, but in that brief span, an unspoken message seemed to shimmer in the air. Celine sauntered across the polished marble, smiled at the doorman who greeted her by name, and vanished behind the elevator doors that led to Theodore Caldwell's private offices. Clarissa felt her stomach twist like a coil, the faint beginnings of nausea that had nothing to do with her pregnancy. Despite her growing anxiety, Clarissa told herself to remain calm. She reasoned there could be a legitimate explanation. Perhaps Celine was merely an investor or an emerging business partner. After all, Theo's empire stretched across continents, encompassing real estate, technology startups, and philanthropic foundations. Beautiful, wealthy women wandered in and out of offices like his all the time. Yet the memory of that whispered name, Celine Moreau, haunted her. She remembered hushed rumors of stolen kisses at glittering parties and clandestine rendezvous at exclusive clubs, though she had never heard Theo's name mentioned explicitly. The question remained, however, did rumor have a kernel of truth? Curiosity tugged at Clarissa so fiercely that she decided to indulge it, at least to quell her own insecurities. She caught the next elevator up, intending to surprise Theo for lunch and see if he'd introduce her to Celine. Inside the elevator, her eyes drifted to her reflection in the gleaming panels. Her hair was carefully styled, makeup subtle and expensive. She was wearing a tailored cream-colored dress that framed her growing baby bump. To the outside world, she looked impeccable, a perfect wife living a perfect life. Her trembling hands betrayed another story. Stepping into Theo's opulent reception area, Clarissa offered a warm greeting to Carla, the ever-efficient secretary. Carla, professional as always, welcomed Clarissa with a polite smile. "Is Theo free for lunch?" Clarissa asked, her voice slightly higher than normal. She tried to mask her apprehension. Carla tapped on her keyboard. "He's in a meeting at the moment, Mrs. Caldwell. Shall I let him know you're here?" Clarissa nodded, her pulse pounding. This was a test. If Theo introduced her to Celine as a legitimate associate, perhaps Clarissa's fears could be laid to rest. But if he brushed her off, or worse, if he reacted defensively, Clarissa would have her answer. Part of her already dreaded what that answer might be. A few minutes later, Theo emerged from his office. His broad shoulders were outlined by a well-tailored suit, and his dark hair was immaculately styled. But Clarissa noticed tension in the set of his jaw and a flicker of surprise in his eyes when he saw her. "Clarissa," he said, planting a quick kiss on her cheek, "this is a nice surprise. I thought you were having lunch with your friend Eliza." "I postponed," she replied softly. "I wanted to see if you could join me instead." "I have something exciting to tell you about the baby, and I just thought maybe we could share a quick bite." He hesitated, glancing over his shoulder. Clarissa's heart sank. She detected worry etched into the lines around his eyes. Before she could press further, another door behind Theo opened. Celine Moreau stepped out with an air of unhurried confidence, her face unreadable. She gave Clarissa a cordial nod, then turned to Theo. "I'll wait for your final decision, Theodore," Celine said. Her voice was low, accented with a faint French lilt. "Don't keep me waiting too long." She paused, flicking her gaze to Clarissa. "It was lovely to see you again, Miss Caldwell." And with that, she left. It was the first direct confirmation Clarissa received that Celine Moreau already knew who she was. Clarissa watched her disappear into the elevator, feeling rage, curiosity, and heartbreak all collide. She looked to Theo for answers, but he only exhaled sharply and gestured for Clarissa to follow him back into his office. "What's going on, Theo?" she asked, voice trembling. "Celine Moreau. She acts like she knows me. She's not just a random investor, is she?" Theo stepped behind his desk, fiddling with a fountain pen. "She's a potential partner for a new venture. It's complicated. I've been reluctant, but she's persistent." His tone was dismissive, as though that explained everything. "Listen, I can't do lunch today, Clarissa. I have back-to-back meetings. Let's do dinner at home tonight." Clarissa fought tears. She wanted to confront him, to scream that she knew something was amiss. Yet she bit her tongue, fearful that anger or accusations would simply push him away. Perhaps she wasn't quite ready to face the truth. Instead, she forced a weak smile, nodded, and turned to leave. "All right," she murmured, her heart heavy. "Dinner tonight, then." She walked away, the proud bearing of a billionaire's wife, intact, chin high, shoulders squared, until the moment she stepped into the elevator. Only then, in the silence of descending floors, did her composure crumble. Tears spilled down her cheeks, unbidden and uncontrollable. Fear coiled around her heart, and, for the first time, Clarissa felt the true weight of suspicion. She was married to a man who could elevate her to unimaginable heights or crush her spirit in a single whisper. Little did she know that was just a hint of the heartache yet to come. Dinner that evening in the Caldwell penthouse was an exercise in strained civility. Theo arrived later than promised, pressing a quick kiss to Clarissa's forehead before disappearing into the master suite to change out of his suit. In the tranquil hush of the dining room floor-to-ceiling windows showcasing Manhattan's glittering skyline, Clarissa waited. Steam curled from the plates of food a personal chef had prepared: grilled salmon, roasted vegetables, and a lemon tart for dessert. Her appetite, however, had all but vanished. When Theo finally returned, he offered her a tight smile and gestured for them to sit. He spoke about revenue forecasts, international expansions, and new philanthropic projects. Clarissa listened politely, but couldn't shake the memory of Celine Moreau's coolly confident gaze. Eventually, Clarissa found the courage to bring up the topic. "So, Celine Moreau, she seems very engaged in your business affairs." Theo stiffened, his fork paused halfway to his mouth. "I already told you, Clarissa. She's just another investor." "You didn't tell me much," she pressed, trying to maintain an even tone. "Who is she, really?" He shot her a sharp glance, as though trying to gauge how much she already knew. "She's from a wealthy European family, specializes in real estate acquisitions. She wants to collaborate on a big project I'm overseeing." Clarissa forced a calm nod. "And have you decided if you'll work together?" A flicker of discomfort crossed his features. "I'm still making up my mind. She's persistent, like I said, but I'm cautious. Partnerships can be tricky." The conversation lapsed into awkward silence. Theo shifted, taking another bite of salmon. Clarissa felt her frustration mounting. He was giving her nothing, shutting her out. She tried again, gentler this time. "Theo, if there's something bothering you, if the stress of work is getting to you, please talk to me. We're about to be parents. I want to be part of your life, not just someone you come home to at night." He reached out to cover her hand with his. "I know, Clarissa. I'm sorry. Things have been complicated. Business sometimes bleeds into personal territory, but I promise I'll handle it." It was a hollow reassurance delivered with a practiced smile. Clarissa sensed a crack widening between them. Still, she nodded, letting him believe she was satisfied. She spent the remainder of the meal discussing her prenatal checkups and the possible names for their child. She spoke about the new nursery designs, hoping to recapture an air of closeness. But beneath the veneer of normalcy, she felt the tension thrumming between them, a taut wire threatening to snap at any moment. After dinner, Theo received a flurry of text messages. He excused himself, stepping into his study. Clarissa wandered out to the penthouse balcony, gazing at the city lights below. She placed a hand on her growing bump, feeling a gentle flutter of movement. The baby's presence was a beacon of hope. "This is for you," she whispered to the unborn child. "I'll do everything to protect you. I promise." For several minutes, she stood alone in the cool air, grappling with the swirl of emotions inside her. Trust, betrayal, love, doubt, they collided, making her dizzy. She tried to calm herself, focusing on the horizon, but the uneasy feeling wouldn't vanish. Back inside, she found Theo hunched over his desk, phone pressed to his ear. He lifted his head and saw her, face clouding with annoyance, though whether at her or the call, she couldn't be sure. "I'll call you back," he muttered, hanging up. Then a forced casualness. "Everything all right?" Clarissa swallowed. "I could ask you the same question." He rubbed his temple, as though fighting a headache. "I'm fine, Clarissa. Just dealing with last-minute details for a meeting tomorrow." She tilted her head. "A meeting with Celine Moreau?" Annoyance flashed in his eyes. "Is this going to be the new topic of every conversation?" Her cheeks flushed. She stepped forward, her voice trembling. "I'm not trying to start a fight, Theo, but I'm pregnant. I've barely seen you for weeks, and I find out you're spending a lot of time with this woman who seems to know me. But I know nothing about her. Can you blame me for wanting clarity?" He sighed, looked away. For a moment, Clarissa thought he might confess something. A pang of guilt, perhaps. But when he looked back at her, his expression was guarded. "Look, I can't talk about every aspect of my business with you. That's not how it works." A chill ran down Clarissa's spine. "It's not just business, though, is it?" She half expected a dramatic denial. Instead, he merely stared at her, jaw tight, and said nothing. The silence spoke volumes. With tears threatening to spill, Clarissa turned and left his study, her heart pounding in her chest. Fear mingled with a flicker of outrage. She knew beyond any doubt that something was wrong, terribly, painfully wrong. That night, she lay in bed unable to sleep. Theo joined her late, slipping under the covers without a word. As he drifted off, she stared at the ceiling, replaying every conversation and every clue. Morning would bring no immediate relief. She was trapped in a lavish, lonely tower, pregnant and desperate for answers that remained just out of reach. If Theo had truly betrayed her, then the cracks in their facade were about to grow into a chasm too wide to ignore. Days turned into a tense blur. Clarissa continued her charity work, plastering on a refined smile whenever she stepped into the public eye. She knew how to navigate high society, how to pretend everything was picture perfect. Yet inside, her resolve was crumbling. She longed to confide in someone, her close friend Eliza, perhaps, but fear of scandal held her back. In the circles they moved, gossip was currency. One wrong word could end up fueling rumors and unraveling her marriage even further. Still, suspicion gnawed at her. Every time she glimpsed Theo's phone lighting up with an incoming call or message, her stomach knotted. She tried to respect his privacy, reminding herself that rummaging through her husband's phone would be a colossal breach of trust. But the tension, the secrecy, Celine's haunting presence each day, it grew harder to ignore the knot of panic in her chest. Then, one afternoon, Clarissa received a phone call from her doctor's office, confirming an appointment for her next prenatal checkup. She decided to drive herself, wanting solitude. Theo rarely offered to accompany her to these visits, citing work obligations. Though hurt, she tried not to dwell on it. Her child's health was her top priority now. As she headed downstairs, she spotted Theo's briefcase on a side table by the elevator. He was apparently in his home office, talking on a conference call. A hum of desperation rose inside Clarissa. She knew she shouldn't, but some insistent voice compelled her to look. Heart pounding, she thumbed the latch on the briefcase. It clicked open. Inside, she found folders of property contracts and a black leather planner. Her breath caught at the sight of a crumpled receipt from Mariposa, an exclusive Italian restaurant downtown known for its romantic ambience. The date stamped on it was from the previous night, when Theo had claimed to be working late. She sank onto the hallway bench, holding the slip of paper. The line item total was astronomical evidence of a lavish dinner, complete with a bottle of vintage wine that Theo usually reserved for special occasions. It wasn't business. She knew it in her gut. Compelled by sorrow and fury, she rifled through a few more papers until something else caught her eye, a small velvet box. Inside it shimmered a diamond bracelet, delicate, with a row of flawless stones set in platinum. It was not the kind of design Clarissa preferred. He would know that. Her chest tightened like a vise. Was this for Celine? Tears burned the back of her eyes. She snapped the briefcase shut, her heart hammering. Clutching the receipt, she stepped into the private elevator, praying Theo wouldn't notice her discovery. The entire ride down, her thoughts raced. Do I confront him now? Do I wait and gather more evidence? She couldn't decide. The elevator doors opened into the lobby, and she forced herself to steady her trembling hands before walking to her car. The prenatal appointment went by in a hazy fog. The doctor's gentle reassurances about the baby's growth were drowned out by Clarissa's tumultuous thoughts. Her blood pressure was slightly elevated, prompting concern, but she managed a tight-lipped smile and promised to take better care of herself. After the appointment, she parked outside a cafe, hoping a cup of tea might calm her nerves. She slid into a booth, phone in hand, resisting the urge to call Theo and accuse him of everything. Instead, she texted Eliza, asking if they could meet later that evening. Eliza was her oldest friend, someone Clarissa trusted to be discreet. She knew this secret was too big to bear alone. Eliza agreed without hesitation. "My place at 7 p.m., she replied. "I'll have the kettle on. It'll be just us." Clarissa sighed in relief. She spent the rest of the afternoon wandering aimlessly, thoughts revolving around the damning evidence. The receipt, the diamond bracelet signposts pointing to an affair. A swirl of confusion and heartache threatened to swallow her. She loved Theo, but she could no longer ignore the truth forming like a dark cloud on the horizon. He was slipping away, and Celine Moreau's shadow loomed large. That evening, she arrived at Eliza's townhouse in a subdued neighborhood far from the high-rise glamour of Midtown. The modest building reminded Clarissa of simpler times, when she and Eliza were in college together, dreaming of grand futures without the burden of wealth's complexities. Eliza opened the door, concern etched on her face the moment she saw Clarissa's disheveled appearance. "How bad is it?" Eliza asked softly, ushering her friend inside. Clarissa held out the restaurant receipt, her hand shaking. "It's worse than I ever imagined." They settled in the living room, teacups in hand, as Clarissa recounted every detail: the rumors, the tense dinners, the suspicious phone calls, and finally, the damning receipt. Eliza listened quietly, occasionally reaching out to squeeze Clarissa's hand. "I can't believe it," Eliza said, eyes glistening with empathy. "Theo always seemed so devoted to you." "People change," Clarissa murmured, pressing a hand to her baby bump. Tears welled in her eyes. "I don't know what to do." Eliza hesitated, then spoke gently. "You should confront him, at least to confirm the truth." It's better to know than to live in this uncertainty. Clarissa nodded, swallowing back sobs. Deep down, she knew Eliza was right. The storm had been gathering for too long, and it was time to face it head-on, no matter how devastating the outcome. That night, Clarissa returned to the penthouse, determined to have a frank conversation with Theo. But he never came home. By midnight, she was alone, tears silently falling as she watched the city lights. Theo was out there, somewhere likely with Celine, and Clarissa feared she'd already lost him for good. The next morning, Clarissa awoke after a restless night, dark circles under her eyes. She had barely slept, haunted by dreams of an elegant woman laughing with Theo beneath flickering candlelight. She resolved that, no matter how painful, she would not let this charade continue unchallenged. The dinner receipt from Mariposa was tucked into her purse, its crumpled edges a constant reminder of his betrayal. She found Theo in the living area, scrolling through his phone. Outside, dawn's soft light illuminated the skyline. He looked up, offering a curt nod. They might as well have been strangers. "You didn't come home last night," she said quietly, forcing calm into her tone. He rubbed the back of his neck. "I ended up staying at the company suite. Late meetings ran over." "Meetings? Or dinner at Mariposa?" She pulled out the receipt, placing it on the table. Theo's face flickered with shock before hardening into a mask. "Were you going through my things?" he accused, voice rising. Clarissa's composure trembled, but she held her ground. "I found it in your briefcase. Maybe I shouldn't have looked. But this is bigger than privacy, Theo. You told me you were working late, yet you spent a fortune on a romantic dinner. Who was with you?" He pressed his lips together, and for a moment she saw guilt etched in the furrow of his brow. Then he scoffed. "You're jumping to conclusions. Yes, I was at Mariposa last night with a potential investor. She insisted on a top-tier meal. It's standard business protocol." Clarissa swallowed back her fury. "And the diamond bracelet? That's business protocol too?" Theo paused, eyes narrowing. "You had no right. I'm your wife, Theo," she snapped, voice cracking. "I have every right to wonder why you're showering someone else with extravagant gifts while I'm at home, pregnant with your child. You're lying to me, and we both know it." Silence. He couldn't maintain eye contact, turning away to stare out the window. Clarissa's shoulders shook as the weight of her anger and heartbreak threatened to overwhelm her. "Theo," she pleaded, tears in her eyes, "if you've been unfaithful, tell me. Don't make me beg for the truth." "I deserve better than that," he exhaled, running a hand through his hair. At last he spoke, voice low. "Celine has become more than a business partner. I never intended for it to happen, but it did. Things got complicated, and now it's not something I can just walk away from." Clarissa's world cracked open. Despite all her suspicions, hearing the confession felt like a punch to the gut. She sank into a nearby chair, struggling to breathe. Theo started to speak again, then stopped. The next question hovered on her lips, a trembling whisper that demanded to be asked. "Are you in love with her?" He didn't answer immediately. Instead, he paced, the tension in his every movement. I don't know," he finally admitted. "But I'm in too deep, Clarissa. There's too much at stake: projects, investments, personal ties." Her tears flowed freely now. "What about us? What about our child?" His face twisted in anguish, as though torn by conflicting loyalties. "I care about you, about the baby. But my relationship with Celine, this could benefit our business in ways you can't understand. She has powerful connections overseas. I didn't want you involved or hurt, so I kept you in the dark." Clarissa let out a bitter laugh, pressing a hand to her chest. "So you betrayed me for a business advantage?" He flinched. "It's more complicated than that." "Celine," she demanded, more than just a partnership. "I didn't want to mix business and pleasure, but she was relentless. And now, well, it happened." Disgust churned in Clarissa's stomach. She could hardly recognize the man before her, a billionaire more concerned about deals than the wife carrying his child. "You make it sound like she forced you," she spat. "But you're a grown man, Theo." You could have said no. A long beat of silence stretched between them. At last, he spoke, voice strained. "I'm sorry, Clarissa. I truly am. But this is the reality we're in. Let me figure out how to manage things so nobody loses. Just give me time." She stared at him in disbelief. Time? Their marriage had been built on vows of love, fidelity, and partnership. Now he was asking her to remain in limbo while he juggled a mistress who doubled as a business partner. The insult cut deeper than any physical wound. Summoning her final shred of dignity, Clarissa rose from the chair. "No more secrets, Theo. I need to decide what's best for me and for our baby." He opened his mouth to reply, but she turned and walked away before he could speak. Once she was alone in their master suite, Clarissa allowed the sobs to erupt from her chest. The confrontation was over, but the pain had only just begun. Theo had chosen ambition and lust over loyalty and love, and now she had to face the reality that her marriage might be beyond saving. Clarissa barely left the penthouse in the days following Theo's admission. She felt numb, as if the world had turned grey. She floated through each hour, mechanical in her tasks, sleeping fitfully, eating only because of the pregnancy, answering polite phone calls from well-meaning acquaintances who were oblivious to the emotional battle inside her. When Theo left for business, she avoided him. When he was home, the atmosphere was steeped in silence so thick it was suffocating. Then a spark of defiance ignited within her. She refused to be a victim in this twisted game. If Theo was willing to risk everything for Celine Moreau, then Clarissa needed to protect herself and her unborn child. That meant understanding precisely what she was up against. She called her family's longtime lawyer, David Harrington, a discreet man known for handling delicate matters with utmost care. David arrived one afternoon, stepping into the penthouse with a solemn expression. He took in Clarissa's pallor and her trembling hands. "I'm sorry you're going through this," he said gently as they settled in Theo's study. "But we'll figure out your options." She explained the situation in as much detail as she could manage, voice quivering when recounting Theo's confession. David listened intently, jotting notes. "So," she concluded, "I need to know what happens if the words caught in her throat, if I leave him. Or, if he leaves me, I want to be prepared." David nodded, flipping through his notes. "Divorce is certainly an option, but it's complicated by his substantial assets and your joint holdings. Plus, you're expecting a child, which gives you additional leverage regarding alimony and child support." Clarissa swallowed. The mere word divorce left a jagged ache in her chest, but she couldn't dismiss it as a possibility. "And if I want to stay in the marriage but have legal protection?" "There are post-nuptial agreements," David offered. "They can outline the distribution of assets in the event of a separation, specify custody arrangements, and even address moral clauses if one partner violates certain conditions. If Theo genuinely wants to reconcile and protect you, he'd be willing to sign something like that." Clarissa nodded, tears threatening again. "I don't know if he wants to reconcile at this point, but at least I have options." David placed a sympathetic hand on her shoulder. "You have more power than you think. Theodore's brand and reputation hinge on a stable personal life. A scandal could damage his business interests significantly. If you wanted to force his hand, you might use that leverage, but I know that's not who you are." She closed her eyes, absorbing his words. Despite her heartbreak, Clarissa took no pleasure in the idea of destroying Theo's reputation. She still loved him, even if that love felt tattered. But she had to consider the well-being of her child above all else. David left behind folders of legal documents for Clarissa to review. As she walked him to the door, she thanked him quietly. "I'll think about my next move," she promised. After he departed, Clarissa found herself standing by the window, gazing down at the busy Manhattan streets. She recalled the day she first met Theo at a charity function. He'd been charming, philanthropic, full of grand visions. She had fallen for him, believing they could build an extraordinary life together. Now, that dream was unraveling before her eyes. She turned away from the view, determination flickering in her heart. She wouldn't be blindsided any longer. That same afternoon, she mustered the courage to call her friend Eliza again. When Eliza arrived, Clarissa explained how she was considering all her legal avenues. "Should I just walk away?" Clarissa asked, voice barely above a whisper. Eliza took her hand gently. "Only you can decide that, but you deserve respect and honesty. Whether that means salvaging your marriage or leaving it behind, you need to feel safe and valued." Clarissa nodded. She looked around the penthouse, recalling how it once felt like a palace of possibilities. Now it was a battlefield. If Theo insisted on carrying on with Celine Moreau, Clarissa would make sure to shield herself and her child from the fallout. Summoning a resolve she didn't know she possessed, Clarissa made a decision. She would confront Celine directly. She wouldn't cower in a corner while that woman pretended to hold all the power. If Theo couldn't be honest about how deep he was entangled, maybe Celine would reveal the truth herself. With Eliza's support, Clarissa set out to learn Celine Moreau's patterns, scouring social media and gleaning tidbits from acquaintances who had encountered the elegant, raven-haired investor. Within days she discovered that Celine frequented an upscale lounge called the Elysian on Thursday nights. If Clarissa wanted answers, that might be her best shot. Preparations for a confrontation were in motion. She still had no idea if it would bring closure, heartbreak, or more chaos, but Clarissa refused to remain a passive casualty of Theo's duplicity. For the sake of her child and her own dignity, she would face the woman her husband had betrayed her for and see just how far Celine was willing to push their lives to the brink. Thursday evening arrived, and Clarissa found herself in front of her vanity mirror, dressing for a battle of a different kind. She chose a sleek black gown less revealing than the cocktail dresses typical of the Elysian's clientele, but elegant enough to command respect. Her baby bump was starting to show more prominently, and she made no effort to hide it. If Celine Moreau needed a reminder of who Theo's wife was, Clarissa intended to provide one. Eliza had volunteered to drive her to the lounge, understanding the emotional toll this confrontation could have. Inside the car, Clarissa felt her heart pound against her ribcage. She looked down at her shaking hands, inhaling deeply to steady her nerves. "You sure you want to do this?" Eliza asked quietly, pulling up to the Elysian's entrance, a modern glass edifice bathed in a soft, golden light. Clarissa exhaled. "I have to. I can't keep wondering, and I refuse to be blindsided any longer." Eliza squeezed Clarissa's hand. "I'll be right here if you need me." Summoning her courage, Clarissa stepped out of the car. The doorman offered a polite nod as she entered, the ambient hum of music and conversation washing over her. Soft jazz played in the background, while wealthy patrons sipped on handcrafted cocktails. Glittering chandeliers lit plush seating areas. It was a high-end haven for Manhattan's elite, precisely the kind of place where Celine Moreau would feel at home. Scanning the room, Clarissa spotted her immediately. Celine sat at a corner table, legs crossed with poised grace. A half-empty glass of champagne glittered in her manicured hand. Clarissa's chest tightened. Celine looked every bit the vixen people gossiped about: immaculate hair, flawless red lips, and a confidence that bordered on arrogance. She was deep in conversation with a tall, distinguished man, but Clarissa recognized the languid smile Celine wore when she seemed bored. Clarissa wove her way through the crowd, each step a test of her fortitude. At last, she stopped a few feet from the table. "Celine Moreau?" she said softly. Celine's head snapped up, and her eyes registered mild surprise before a slow smirk curved across her lips. Mrs. Caldwell, she replied, dipping her head politely. To her companion, she murmured something in French, and the man excused himself. Celine gestured for Clarissa to sit. Clarissa remained standing. Her hands trembled at her sides, though she struggled to maintain a mask of composure. "I came here to speak with you," she said, voice slightly unsteady. "In private." Celine considered her, then rose gracefully. "Follow me." They made their way to a more secluded nook of the lounge. Ambient light cast shadows on the walls, giving the encounter a clandestine feel. Celine leaned against a sleek bar, swirling her champagne. Clarissa clasped her hands together to stop them from shaking. "You're a brave woman, Mrs. Caldwell," Celine said, her accent lilting. "Confronting me like this. What do you hope to gain?" Clarissa tightened her jaw. "I want to know the truth. Whatever arrangement you and Theo have, it's tearing our marriage apart. And if you think I'll just step aside and let you waltz into his life unchallenged, you're mistaken." A low laugh escaped Celine's lips. "Oh, Clarissa, so naive. You think this is just about an affair? It's business. Theo and I have a partnership that extends beyond the bedroom. We're merging assets, forging new opportunities. You're just part of his image, something pretty to display at charity galas." Clarissa's cheeks flamed, but she held back tears. "How dare you speak to me like that? I'm his wife, the mother of his child." Celine shrugged, taking a delicate sip of champagne. "And that's precisely why I'm surprised you haven't acted sooner. Theo is ambitious. He loves power almost as much as he loves himself. When a man like that sees a chance to extend his empire, moral lines blur. Did he ever love me?" Clarissa whispered, hating how vulnerable she sounded. Celine paused, regarding her with something akin to pity. "Perhaps at one point. But people change when success beckons. And let's be honest, Theo wouldn't be where he is without the right alliances. I happen to be the alliance he needs right now." The words cut like a blade. Clarissa felt an overwhelming urge to flee, but she steadied herself. "You might have business ties, but you have no right to tear my family apart." A dangerous sparkle lit Celine's eyes. "I have every right. I earned it by cultivating the right people, investing in the right deals. If you really want the truth, Theo and I have been together for months. We've traveled to private estates, sealed lucrative contracts. And yes, the diamond bracelet was from him. A token of gratitude, if you will." Clarissa's stomach lurched. She forced back tears, refusing to let Celine see her crumble. "So what now? Do you plan on replacing me?" "If I wanted that, it would already be done," Celine said coolly. "But I don't want marriage, Clarissa. That's messy. Besides, Theo's image is polished by having you. What I do want is for you to stay out of our way, keep up appearances, and let us conduct business without your meddling." Clarissa's fury flared. "You're vile," she spat, "and you underestimate me if you think I'll quietly endure this humiliation. I'm not just some pawn." Celine's crimson lips curved in a slight smile. "We'll see. You have two choices: adapt to this new arrangement or leave. Either way, the business deals go on, and Theo remains by my side for them. Consider your options carefully." Before Clarissa could reply, Celine turned and slipped back into the crowd, leaving behind the sharp tang of perfume and the echo of her cruel words. Clarissa stood there, her heart pounding, tears threatening to spill. The confrontation had laid bare an ugly truth. Celine wasn't just a mistress, she was a strategic partner, embedded in Theo's empire in a way that threatened everything Clarissa held dear. She eventually found her way back to Eliza, her mind spinning. She had gotten her answers, and they were more horrifying than she'd feared. If Theo was truly lost to this woman's influence, Clarissa needed to decide whether to fight for her marriage or walk away while somehow preserving her child's future in the process. In the days following her confrontation with Celine, Clarissa moved through life in a stunned haze. Every so often, she'd stumble upon new reminders of Theo's deception, a flurry of text messages he tried to hide, or a voicemail from Celine that he forgot to erase. Each discovery felt like a fresh wound, a twisting of the knife buried in her heart. Theo, for his part, grew more distant. The few times they spoke were fraught with tension, his words clipped and defensive. Then, just when Clarissa thought she couldn't bear more anguish, the scandal exploded in public. An influential gossip site published a grainy yet unmistakable photo of Theo and Celine at Mariposa, gazing into each other's eyes under the soft glow of candlelight. The article speculated about their relationship, referencing insider tips that the pair had been seen traveling to Europe together on more than one occasion. Clarissa's phone erupted with messages and missed calls. Everyone wanted a statement, a reaction. She ignored them all, retreating to her bedroom, curtains drawn. She'd never felt more humiliated. News outlets delighted in the downfall of the fairy tale Caldwell marriage, rehashing every detail of Clarissa's background and rumored pregnancy troubles, though there were none, beyond mild stress-related issues. In the tabloids, she was painted as either the ignorant wife or the pitiful victim. Theo stormed into the penthouse that evening, eyes red with fury. "We have a problem," he declared. Clarissa stared at him, feeling a hot surge of righteous anger. "We? This is your mess, Theo. You and Celine invited this scandal." He threw down the gossip magazine on the marble counter, its cover emblazoned with their pictures. Celine's furious. "Our business partners are asking questions. Stock prices could plummet if we don't get ahead of this narrative." She wanted to laugh at the absurdity of it all. His first concern was the stock market, not her dignity or the well-being of their unborn child. "So what do you want me to do? Issue a statement defending you?" she asked bitterly. His gaze flickered with desperation. "It might help if you publicly show support. We can spin this as a baseless rumor, maybe claim that photo was taken out of context. Celine can do the same." He reached for her hand, but she recoiled. "How dare you?" she breathed, voice shaking with rage. "You want me to lie for you after everything you've done to me? To us?" Theo's jaw clenched. "We're in crisis mode, Clarissa. If this gets worse, I could lose everything. We could lose everything. I need you on my side." "Because you're frightened of losing money?" She let out a mirthless laugh. "My side was where you were supposed to be all along, but you chose Celine. You brought this upon yourself." He opened his mouth to retort, but his phone buzzed. Clarissa recognized Celine's name on the screen. Theo swore under his breath and stepped away to take the call. The conversation was hushed, but Clarissa caught fragments: damage control, press release, temporary distancing. It was a cold reminder that Theo and Celine were now co-strategists in a PR war, one that Clarissa never asked to fight. A wave of nausea swept over her, and Clarissa pressed a hand to her stomach. She was too stressed, too overwhelmed. Adrenaline surged, and she hurried to the bathroom, retching into the sink. Tears blurred her vision. This entire ordeal was taking a toll on her health, and by extension, the baby's. Theo found her there, pale and trembling. For a fleeting moment, concern etched his features. "Clarissa." She waved him off, turning on the faucet to rinse her mouth. "You've already done enough, Theo. I'll figure out how to protect my child, and I won't lie for you." He hovered in the doorway, torn. "I never wanted this. I'm sorry." But the words came too late, too hollow. Later that night, Clarissa sat in the dark living room, phone buzzing incessantly. She picked up only one call: her mother, who lived in London. Though Clarissa spared her some details, her mother immediately flew into a protective rage, insisting Clarissa come to stay with her. Clarissa couldn't help but consider it. An ocean away from scandal, from heartbreak, from the man who had turned her life into a public spectacle. Yet she hesitated. Running away felt like surrender, and she wasn't ready for that. Nor did she want to abandon New York, the city she'd grown to love, the city she wanted her child to know. Another ping jolted her phone. This time, it was a text from David Harrington, her lawyer. We should move forward with a strategic approach. Call me ASAP. She clutched her stomach and realized she had reached a crossroads. Theo's betrayal was now a matter of public record, and Celine's hold on him extended beyond closed doors. If Clarissa was to protect herself and her child, she needed to act decisively. Enough tears, enough humiliation. It was time to turn the narrative around on her terms. Clarissa wasted no time. Early the next morning, she met David Harrington at his downtown office. The skyscraper's modern interior, with its steel fixtures and minimalist decor, matched Clarissa's steeled resolve. She refused to feel out of place, though heartbreak clung to her. She vowed to project strength. David welcomed her with a handshake. I've drafted a few documents based on our last discussion, he said, leading her into a private conference room. Given the media frenzy, you have a strong position. Clarissa sat down, fingertips trembling with nerves. Walk me through it. David laid out the plan, a postnuptial agreement that would grant Clarissa significant financial security if Theo chose to continue the affair or, worse, sought a divorce. It also included stipulations for child support, shared custody agreements, and limitations on bringing Celine around the baby, particularly in the early months. Additionally, David recommended Clarissa issue a dignified public statement acknowledging the rumors but focusing on her pregnancy and well-being. The press might portray you as a scorned woman, David explained gently, but if you show poise and concern only for your child, you'll earn public sympathy. It could pressure Theo to handle matters privately, limiting Celine's influence, or it may give you the moral high ground if you proceed with divorce. Clarissa exhaled, reading through the legal jargon. So either I demand Theo sign this agreement to protect me, or I walk away entirely. David nodded. Yes, but remember, you have the leverage now. He'll want to prevent any additional headlines that cast him in a worse light. I hate that it's come to this, Clarissa murmured, tears welling up. But my priority has to be the baby. I won't be bullied. David's voice softened. You're doing the right thing. Leaving the office, Clarissa felt a strange mixture of relief and sorrow. The documents in her bag represented her final stand. Either Theo would respect her terms, or she would carve out a separate life for herself and her child, free from deception. It was a grim line in the sand, but she saw no other choice. Back at the penthouse, she found Theo in the living room, pacing. A stack of newspapers lay scattered on the coffee table, each plastered with variations of the scandalous headlines. He looked up, eyes rimmed with fatigue. Where have you been? Meeting with my lawyer, Clarissa said, leveling her gaze at him. Anxiety flickered in his features. Why? Because I'm done being a pawn. She held up the folder of documents. I have a postnuptial agreement that outlines what happens if this affair continues, or if you decide to end our marriage. If you care about our child and me at all, you'll sign it. Theo swallowed hard, reaching for the folder. She watched his expression morph from shock to defensiveness. You want me to sign away half of everything? He asked, scanning the provisions. You've already risked more than half by carrying on with Celine, she replied. I'm simply making sure my child has security. He slammed the folder down on the table, composure fraying. This is extortion. Clarissa's voice trembled, but she stood firm. You made choices without regard for me. Now I'm doing what I must. Theo glared at her, then turned away, running a hand through his hair. You realize this could tank the business if it leaks? Investors will see it as proof our marriage is in trouble. She let out a humorless laugh. The entire city knows our marriage is in trouble, Theo. I'm offering you one last chance to do right by me and by our child." For a moment, neither spoke. The weight of unspoken words hung in the air. Finally, Theo exhaled, picking up the folder again. He flipped through pages, jaw clenched. "I need time to think about this. I'm not signing anything without having my own legal counsel review it." "That's fair," Clarissa said, her voice steadier than she felt. "But understand, if you choose Celine, I won't stay. This is your last opportunity to prove you value our family." He stared at her for a long moment, conflict etched into every line of his face. Then he nodded curtly and walked out, folder in hand. Clarissa sank onto the couch, heart pounding. She wrapped her arms protectively around her belly. She didn't know she could ever forgive Theo for the betrayal, but part of her still hoped he would come to his senses. If not for her sake, then for the baby's. That afternoon she followed David's advice and released a short public statement through a trusted PR friend. It read, "I am aware of the recent speculation regarding my husband's personal and business associations. At this time, my priority is the health and well-being of my pregnancy. I kindly request privacy and understanding during this sensitive period." Within hours, messages flooded in support from friends, curiosity from reporters, condemnation from the tabloids. Yet Clarissa felt a semblance of control for the first time since the scandal broke. She had drawn her line. Whether Theo would respect it or cross it remained uncertain. Clarissa sat at the kitchen island, rubbing her rounded belly and thinking over the turmoil that had upended her life. Suddenly, Theo walked in, looking haggard, a folder clutched in his hand. He set it down, meeting her gaze with hesitant determination. "I read the documents," he said quietly. "I'll sign." Clarissa's heart thudded. "Does that mean you've ended things with Celine?" Theo nodded, drawing a slow breath. "I told her we're done personally. We'll finish out our business deals, but strictly as partners." He stared at the marble floor before whispering, "I'm sorry. I nearly lost everything that matters." She handed him a pen, watching him scribble his name on the postnuptial agreement that guaranteed her and their baby's financial safety if he strayed again. Once finished, he set the pen aside, his hand trembling. "I'll do counseling," he offered. "Whatever it takes." Clarissa tried to steady her voice. "Trust isn't restored with words alone. I need time." A tense silence followed, broken only when Theo reached toward her swollen belly. She hesitated, then allowed his hand to rest there. The baby shifted, as if sensing the fragile accord. For a brief moment, they were silent, united by the impending arrival of new life. In the following days, Theo began showing up for prenatal appointments, cancelled late meetings, and even helped assemble a crib. But the memory of his betrayal lingered. Clarissa, newly empowered, kept her legal protection close at hand and her heart guarded. Only time would reveal whether Theo's remorse was genuine. For now, she found solace in knowing she had acted decisively to secure her future and her child's safety. No matter what came next, she would move forward on her own terms. Thank you for joining me on this emotional journey of power, betrayal, and resilience. Clarissa's story reminds us that love can be both breathtaking and devastating, but with courage and self-respect, we can reclaim our lives. If you've been gripped by the twists and turns of this scandalous tale, please show your support by hitting the like button. Let's continue to spread these raw, heartfelt stories by sharing the video with friends and family who crave real-life drama fiction. And if you don't want to miss out on more stories filled with intrigue, heartbreak, and ultimate triumph, make sure to subscribe to our channel. You'll be the first to know whenever a new riveting story unfolds. Until next time, remember, your strength lies not in never falling, but in rising every time you do. Stay strong and stay tuned.